This is the Capitol Rundown.
As we say in the biz, there are two chances of that happening, slim and none, and slim just left town, okay?
My guess is that it's unlikely to pass the state legislature and be implemented anytime soon.
You do not want to risk either a longer monitorship or, having a takeover of the union.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Siobhan Klepfer. As always, there's a lot happening in Michigan politics, whether it's in Lansing or on Capitol Hill, so let's get started. And we begin this morning with the petition signature problems faced by a number of political candidates in the state. In May, the Michigan Board of State Canvassers disqualified a number of candidates from appearing on primary ballots for both state and congressional positions. Across both parties, the board claimed there were clear examples of signature fraud. One political expert says candidates, especially those trying to qualify on their own without the help of party resources, rely on outside workers to gather those signatures, and that can lead to fraud or just regular mistakes that can still disqualify a candidate.
And you can hire them, usually paying a certain amount per signature gathered. So I think for a Senate race, you have to have 1,000 signatures distributed broadly. And this is where the problem arises. The people who are signature gatherers don't have any particular commitment to the political system. It's a job for them. It's not quite hourly. It's like piecework, so much per signature. And they have to walk up to strangers, explain who they are, what the petition is, ask for a signature. Sometimes they have to ask where the person is from.
A judge ruled on Thursday that 3 such workers will now stand trial on felony charges for fraudulent signatures. They did that work in 2022, and the rejected petitions kicked 5 Republican candidates for governor off the ballot.
One particular firm in which the signature gatherers were collaborating with each other to exchange signatures with Xerox pages. Sometimes they sit at a table and they write in names and addresses themselves and so on. The same handwriting across, 25 lines on a page. Or somebody's name that doesn't match up with their address in the voter file. And then, of course, when problems arise, then they begin comparing the petitions from different candidates, and that's when they find the Xerox pages. So it's a very important part of the process.
4 Michigan Republican lawmakers have introduced a bill in the State House that would eliminate the requirement to gather signatures. The proposed bill would allow candidates to pay a fee ranging from $1,000 to $5,000 depending on the office instead of gathering signatures. The bill has been referred to the State House Committee on Government Operations.
You could think of the signature gathering process as a kind of a leveling process. Everybody has, in theory, the same opportunity. It's not the same as being able to write a fairly large check. My guess is that it's unlikely to pass the state legislature and be implemented anytime soon.
Coming up on the Capitol Rundown, opposing bills covering IVF were in Congress this past week. But first, the Michigan legislature is closer to banning technology that victimizes people by faking their image. We'll explain when the Rundown returns. Welcome back. The State House overwhelmingly passed a bill that would ban people from spreading so-called deepfake pornography. It's now heading to the state Senate for consideration. Deepfakes are pictures or videos that use artificial intelligence to show someone doing or saying something that they never did. The bill would make it so that spreading deepfakes without permission could lead to civil and criminal penalties, including prison time. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are at a stalemate when it comes to protecting in vitro fertilization. Senate Republicans on Thursday voted down a Democratic IVF bill after Democrats blocked the GOP-backed IVF legislation on Wednesday. Our Washington correspondent Maddie Biertemple reports.
Without IVF, Colorado Senator John Hickenlooper wouldn't have his son.
In vitro gave us what we hoped for.
It gave Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth what she hoped for, too.
It's only thanks to IVF that I get to be embarrassingly proud when I hang my 6-year-old's drawings on my Senate office walls.
Democrats' Right to IVF Act aimed to ensure access to IVF nationally and make it more affordable through insurance.
We need to make sure women have the freedom to make our own reproductive decisions.
The bill failed largely on party lines. Republicans say the bill isn't needed since no states currently ban IVF. The issue gained national attention after an Alabama Supreme Court decision forced many clinics to pause operations before state lawmakers passed protections. Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy says Democrats are politicizing the issue.
A deceiving, disrespectful bill to misinform and scare the public.
Cassidy says Republicans made their support for IVF clear with their own bill that Democrats blocked Wednesday. It would have denied Medicaid funding to states that ban the procedure.
Republicans in the Senate support IVF.
After the vote, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said it's a sad day.
Republicans cannot say they're a pro-family, but then vote against protecting IVF. But that's exactly what they did.
House Democrats have a similar bill, but don't have the votes to bring it to the floor. In Washington, I'm Maddie Biertemple.
Coming up, UAW President Shawn Fain is now under investigation by the federal government. We'll have the details on how that could affect the union's push for increased membership. That and much more still to come. UAW President Shawn Fain is the focus of a federal investigation. Fain is accused of abusing his power as union president. Here's Gino Vici in Warren with the latest.
Yes, and these allegations are coming at a very crucial time for the UAW as it pushes to increase union membership across the country. Some say the important thing for the UAW to do right now in order to save face is to be as transparent as possible with federal investigators.
You do not want to risk either a longer monitorship or, having a takeover of the union.
Brian Rothenberg, the former spokesperson for the UAW, says the UAW ought not delay getting the federal monitor documents it's requesting after an investigation was launched into UAW President Shawn Fain.
What I do know is if the federal government doesn't get the documents, it doesn't matter. They're in charge in terms of the monitor's role.
Rothenberg says let's not forget the reason for the federal monitor existing in the first place. Because in 2019, massive fraud discovered, officials convicted. Federal investigators are looking into allegations that UAW Secretary-Treasurer Margaret Mock faced retaliation from Fain for her reluctance to authorize expenditures for his office. There is also an investigation into Mock's actions.
It does seem like these decisions have put them in a really difficult position where either the president's office is going to have a problem when the records are returned, or those officers will have a problem because there's clearly a conflict from the original statements.
The federal monitor has requested more than 100,000 documents. Only several thousand have been submitted. However, the UAW has released this statement. It reads, quote, "Taking our union in a new direction means sometimes you have to rock the boat, and that upsets some people who want to keep the status quo. But our membership expects better and deserves better than the old business as usual. We encourage the monitor to investigate whatever claims are brought to their office because we know what they'll find: a UAW leadership committed to serving the membership and running a democratic union. We're staying focused on winning record contracts, growing our union, and fighting for economic and social justice on and off the job," end quote.
But, these things, there's nothing that's been found. And maybe there is a way that they can explain it to the federal government.
Next on the rundown, our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic will be here, and he has details on a possible new candidate for governor and plans to bring jobs to Michigan. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Former GOP candidate for governor Kevin Rinke says he wants General Motors to convert the Detroit Renaissance Center into affordable housing. And he's telling our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic if he runs for governor again, the idea would be part of his statewide campaign.
Business person and former Republican candidate for governor Kevin Rinke is now asking General Motors not to tear down the Ren Center in Detroit, but make a statement by
taking the Renaissance Center and converting it, some of it, all of it, to affordable housing.
Mr. Rinke contends that would open new housing opportunities for neighborhood families in Detroit. Mr. Rinke also says just as Ford is helping to revitalize the city with the new train station, General Motors could leave the same kind of legacy behind if it does this.
And I'm calling on Mary Barra to make a legacy. This is General Motors' opportunity as they move into their new world headquarters to make a philanthropic statement for the state of Michigan and the people of Detroit like never before.
Mr. Rinke has reached out to Detroit City Hall, other business leaders in the community, and anybody else who will listen. And he says he's willing to open his own checkbook if this gets off the ground. Meanwhile, on the political front, while he lost in his last bid for governor, it is clear he is pondering a reboot and would use the RenCen idea to get votes on the campaign trail. So if somebody wanted to run for governor or was running for governor, wouldn't this be a great issue to take to the people?
I think that it would be a primary issue on a strong leader's platform.
And would that person be you?
You know, time will tell.
To be sure, he is not ready to announce his bid for governor, but is there a 50-50 chance he will? If things fall into place, you would love to be governor of Michigan.
I think that if things fall into place, that I do a heck of a good job for the people of Michigan.
If I say it's 50-50, that would be accurate.
I'd say that that's a very reasonable assumption.
Make of that what you will.
Well, the Rundown's Jerome Duran talked to Tim about Mr. Rinke's plans. They also had a conversation about what state lawmakers are trying to do to bring in more jobs to Michigan.
It's time to get updated politically here in the state of Michigan, and nobody better than this guy right here, Tim Skubic. Tim, it seems like a lot of things would have to fall into place for Mr. Rinke's plan to turn the GM Renaissance Center into housing, but could he realistically get that done, and is this a winning issue when trying to get statewide votes?
Well, people will remember Jorma, Kevin Rinke, who ran unsuccessfully for governor on the Republican side, losing the nomination to Tudor Dixon. But in covering this guy over the years, he clearly has the bug, and my guess is he will run for governor again. His idea is to turn the RenCen into affordable housing, and we'd like General Motors to do that. And under questioning, I said, well, if you were to run for governor, would you make that part of your campaign? He said, absolutely. He says, that's what strong leaders are all about. Well, there's the key word. When a guy starts talking about being a strong leader, he wants to be governor. So it's an interesting story. It's an interesting concept. I'm not sure it will come to fruition, but it was very kind of him to come up and offer the story, and we were pleased to do that.
Absolutely. Well, Democrats in the state house are trying to push forward a new jobs plan. What can you tell us is in it, and what's the reaction to it so far?
This is a classic example, Jorma, of if you resolve something over here and something jumps out over there. Poor Speaker Joe Tate. He's got his hands full. This is not only hurting cats, this is hurting tigers, because the Democratic caucus is all over the lot. You got the progressives who came up with a plan to create jobs that also included money for transportation, money for housing, and then some money for corporations to create jobs. Then when the liberals got what they wanted, the moderates in the Democratic House caucus said, wait a second, we're not in favor of that. And so now the speaker's trying to get the moderates back on board. And of course, his other option is if he can't get his caucus Humpty Dumpty back together again, he could go to the other side of the aisle and ask for some Republicans to vote for this Democratic plan. As we say in the biz, there are two chances of that happening, slim and none. And Slim just left town, okay? And if he's going to deal with the Republicans, they're going to ask for the world and everything beyond in order to get their votes. So it is in a stalemated mode right now. The governor is on board, the speaker's on board, but the Democratic caucus is not. And they got probably about 2 or 3 weeks to get this resolved. And hanging in the balance is how do we create jobs in Michigan? And right now, it's looking pretty shaky.
Wow, that's some good stuff right there. Tim, always good to see and hear from you. We appreciate it.
Well, there is a new candidate for the Michigan Supreme Court. Coming up, we'll tell you why Republican lawyer and Trump ally Matt DePerno says he's running. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Republican Matt DePerno, an attorney charged in connection with an effort to illegally access and tamper with voting machines in Michigan after the 2020 election, said on Thursday he's running for the state's high court. He made the announcement on social media. 5 vote tabulators were illegally taken from 3 Michigan counties and brought to a hotel room, according to documents released in 2022 by Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel's office. Investigators found they were broken into and tests were performed on the equipment. DePerno was named as a prime instigator. The case has not gone to trial, and DePerno denies any wrongdoing. In his statement, DePerno said, quote, "After watching the abuse of our legal system, both here in Michigan as well as across the country, it is clear that the Michigan Supreme Court needs members that are committed to following the Constitution and rule of law." Michigan Democratic Party Chair LeVar Barnes said Thursday in a statement that DePerno's, quote, "disdain for democracy and reproductive freedom makes him a direct threat to our legal system." Well, if you're interested in getting more political news from Michigan and Washington, we've got just the thing for you. You can sign up for our Capitol Rundown newsletter. It's just 1 email each week, and you can get it by pointing your cell phone camera at the screen right now. This will take you to the sign-up page, or you can head to WLNS.com/newsletter. And that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown.